Sometimes love doesn't fail because people don't care. It fails because someone does care, but is terrified to show it. Avoidants aren't cold, they're cautious. They've built walls, not because they want to shut people out, but because they once let the wrong person in. When an avoidant starts falling for you, they don't just fall, they test. Every step closer is a quiet exam of safety, consistency, and emotional intelligence. They're not asking you to prove your worth. They're asking, can I trust this connection not to destroy me? The first test they'll give you is distance. When they pull back, they're not punishing you. They're measuring if you'll chase or collapse. They want to see if your love stays grounded, not desperate. The hack? Don't fill the silence with panic. Fill it with peace. Show that your self-worth doesn't depend on their closeness. The second test is emotional control. Avoidants often poke at your boundaries just to see if you'll explode. Why? Because they've learned that love can turn volatile when emotions take over. Your calmness tells them you're not here to fight for control. You're here to build connection. Then comes authenticity. They crave it but fear it. When they share a small piece of vulnerability, it's never random. It's a hidden door test. If you walk in with care, they'll open more. But if you mock, minimize, or judge, the door shuts tighter than before. Fourth is consistency. Avoidants are trained by disappointment. They don't believe words until they've watched them turn into patterns. You can't convince them with intensity. You win them with integrity. Be steady, not spectacular. And the fifth test is independence. They need to know you won't disappear into them. Ironically, the moment they see you have a life that doesn't orbit around theirs, they start to relax. It's not rejection they fear, it's losing freedom. The hack, be your own person. That's what makes you magnetic. In truth, the tests of avoidance aren't traps. They're protective instincts, born from hurt, designed to survive. But when met with patience, understanding, and calm strength, those defenses slowly turn into devotion. Falling in love with an avoidant isn't about breaking their walls. It's about showing them that some people don't need to be shut out. That love, when done right, can feel like safety, not surrender, and maybe, just maybe, you're the first person who finally proves that. When an avoidant person begins to distance themselves, it's easy to mistake that space for rejection. It can feel like they're pulling away because you did something wrong, or because they don't care. But in reality, distance for an avoidant isn't always a door closing. It's often a quiet observation. It's their way of checking, will you stay calm when I step back? Will you let me breathe without disappearing or demanding more? You see, avoidants have learned through experience that love can quickly turn suffocating. They may have been in situations where affection came with conditions, where closeness meant losing autonomy, or where vulnerability led to pain. So when they start to care, their instinct isn't to run from you, it's to test if closeness with you feels safe. What they're watching is how you respond in moments of uncertainty. Do you start chasing them? Do you flood them with calls, texts, or guilt when they go quiet? Or do you hold steady, trusting that space doesn't erase connection? For avoidance, consistency in calmness is everything. Because if your love depends on constant reassurance, it tells them that being close to you might cost them their sense of peace. What they need to see is that your emotional world doesn't collapse when they take a step back. That you can handle moments of silence without spiraling into fear. This doesn't mean pretending not to care or playing hard to get. It's about showing that you value balance, that you can love deeply while still respecting boundaries. When they pull away, don't rush to fix it. Instead, keep living your life, stay engaged with your passions, and maintain your emotional rhythm. That quiet confidence sends a message far louder than any chase ever could. It says, I'm here, but I'm whole on my own. And that's what makes an avoidant start to feel safe, because safety to them is found in someone who won't demand more than they can give in the moment. Avoidants often fear being consumed by love. They've associated intimacy with control or dependency, so your calm reaction to their distance becomes a mirror of emotional maturity. It tells them that this relationship can breathe, that they can step back without losing you. And slowly, they start to see that love doesn't have to mean losing themselves. If you can hold space without panic, if you can remain centered while they test the waters of emotional safety, you're showing them something rare. You're proving that love can be both close and calm. That affection doesn't need to come with pressure. And for someone who's built their identity around protecting their heart, that's the first sign they might finally let you in, not because you chased them, but because your peace made them believe this time they don't need to run. Emotional control is one of the quietest yet most powerful ways to build trust with someone who has avoidant tendencies. When an avoidant begins to connect, they often observe how you handle emotional tension. They might subtly trigger small disagreements, withdraw affection for a moment, or express something that feels dismissive, not out of cruelty, but out of curiosity. They want to see what happens when things don't go perfectly. Will you lash out? Will you crumble? Or will you remain steady, grounded, and emotionally aware? For someone who fears being trapped in volatile or unpredictable love, your response in these moments tells them everything about whether they can trust you with their heart. Avoidants are sensitive to emotional chaos because, deep down, they've lived it before. Perhaps they grew up in an environment where emotions were overwhelming, inconsistent, or used as weapons. So when feelings run high, their instinct is to retreat. That's why, when they see a partner who can stay calm, even during tension, they start to exhale. It signals safety. It tells them that love with you won't spiral into drama every time a boundary or difference appears. You're showing them that feelings can be expressed without fear, and that arguments don't have to destroy connection. This doesn't mean suppressing your emotions or pretending nothing affects you. True emotional control is about awareness, recognizing your triggers, choosing your responses, and staying anchored in understanding rather than impulse. If they pull back, you don't chase in panic. If they go quiet, you don't punish them with silence. You express your needs with clarity, not confrontation. You can say, "I feel disconnected lately, and I want to understand what's going on," instead of, "Why are you always distant?" That subtle shift from accusation to curiosity transforms the entire emotional tone. What avoidants are testing is not whether you're perfect, but whether you can be emotionally stable when intimacy feels uncertain. They want to see if you can handle discomfort without trying to control it. Because for them, emotional explosions signal danger. They've learned that when someone loses control, love becomes unpredictable, and unpredictability feels unsafe. But when they witness your ability to self-regulate, to pause before reacting, to respond with empathy instead of ego, they begin to trust not just you, but the relationship itself. Your calmness becomes a signal that love with you isn't conditional on constant harmony. It's proof that even when emotions rise, you'll choose connection over chaos, and slowly that predictability becomes comforting. They start to realize that you won't weaponize their fears and that you can stand strong when their defenses appear. That kind of emotional consistency doesn't just earn respect, it creates intimacy. Because to an avoidant, safety is love, and nothing says safety more clearly than someone who can stay soft, even when things get hard. Authenticity is one of the most powerful invitations to trust, especially for someone with avoidant tendencies. Deep down, avoidants crave real connection, but they've learned to fear it because, in their experience, vulnerability has often been followed by disappointment or betrayal. So when they start to share small truths about their feelings, their past, or their fears, it's rarely random. Every revelation is a quiet test. They're watching to see how you'll respond when they let their guard down even just an inch. Will you rush to fix them? Will you use their truth against them later? Or will you hold space for it, without judgment, without rescue, without agenda? Avoidants are used to being misunderstood. They've often spent years perfecting emotional control to protect themselves. So when they finally reveal something genuine, it's a moment of deep risk. It might sound simple, even casual, like mentioning an old wound, a moment of doubt, or a story from their past. But for them, that's not small talk, that's trust talk. What they're searching for is authenticity in return. They want to know if you'll match their honesty with your own, if you'll respond from a place of truth rather than performance. Because real love for an avoidant isn't about intensity, it's about emotional truth that feels safe enough to stay. Authenticity, however, isn't just about what you say, it's how you show up. It's in the way you own your emotions, admit when you're wrong, and express care without pretending to be perfect. Avoidants have finely tuned radar for inconsistency. If they sense you're hiding behind charm, pretense, or people pleasing, they'll retreat. They're not looking for someone flawless, they're looking for someone real. When you're honest about what you feel, even if it's uncomfortable, it teaches them that truth doesn't have to destroy connection. It can deepen it. The real hack is patience. When they open up, resist the urge to dig for more or turn every vulnerable moment into a therapy session. Let them reveal at their own pace. Their trust grows not from grand gestures, but from the quiet reliability of your response. If they share something painful, acknowledge it with empathy. If they admit confusion, don't rush to solve it. Just listen. Those moments of gentle understanding show them that they can be seen without being controlled. Authenticity creates a safe emotional rhythm. It tells the avoidant, you don't have to perform to be loved here. And once they feel that, they begin to relax into connection. They stop testing and start trusting. Because the truth is, avoidants don't fall for appearances. They fall for emotional honesty that feels steady and kind. Every time you meet their truth with your own, you dismantle another layer of fear. And slowly, what once felt like risk begins to feel like refuge. Consistency is the quiet language of trust, and for someone with avoidant tendencies, it's the only one that truly speaks. Avoidants have often lived through promises that broke, affection that faded, and words that meant everything one day and nothing the next. Because of that, they don't fall for intensity, they fall for patterns. When you first connect with them, grand gestures and poetic confessions may impress them, but they won't make them feel safe. What does is seeing you show up in small, reliable ways over and over again. For an avoidant, safety is built in repetition. It's not about what you do once when it's easy. It's about what you do consistently when it's hard. Avoidants test consistency because inconsistency has been their biggest heartbreak. They've seen how quickly love can turn into absence, how affection can vanish after conflict, how someone's "I love you" can coexist with neglect. So they pay attention not to what you say in your brightest moments, but how you behave in your quiet ones. Do you keep your word when it's inconvenient? Do you stay kind when you're frustrated? Do you communicate clearly even when they go distant? Every small moment adds to a larger picture of trustworthiness. It's important to understand that an avoidant won't tell you they're watching these things, they'll just notice. When they withdraw, it's not always to punish, sometimes it's to observe whether your care is conditional. If you become angry or guilt-ridden the moment they step back, they register it as danger. But if you remain grounded, consistent in tone and energy, they start to see that this connection might not come with the emotional volatility they fear. You're showing them that your love isn't dependent on constant closeness. It's built on something deeper. Consistency isn't about perfection. It's about emotional steadiness. It means being honest about your limits, showing up when you say you will, and maintaining the same level of respect, whether things are lighthearted or tense. Avoidants often equate inconsistency with instability, and instability reminds them of past chaos. So when you keep your promises, big or small, you start to rewrite their internal narrative about love. You teach them that affection can be dependable, that care doesn't vanish after conflict, that love doesn't demand constant performance. When they see you handle both warmth and distance with the same energy, they begin to lower their guard, because for them, love has always been a storm. They're waiting to see if you'll become another one. But when you show that your emotional weather doesn't change with the wind, they start to trust the forecast. That's when an avoidant begins to lean in, not because you persuaded them, but because you proved through consistency that this connection won't crumble under pressure. For someone who's used to unpredictability, your reliability becomes irresistible. Independence is one of the most magnetic qualities you can bring into a connection with an avoidant. For someone who has built their sense of safety around self-reliance, the idea of losing freedom inside love can feel like suffocation. They've likely experienced relationships where closeness came at the cost of individuality, where affection turned into control, or where love demanded that they abandon their own needs. So when they start to care for someone new, one of their biggest silent tests is this: can you love them without trying to own them? Can you stay connected without becoming consumed? What draws an avoidant closer isn't dependency, it's seeing that you have your own center, your own passions, your own sense of identity that doesn't vanish when they walk into the room. Avoidants don't want a partner who disappears into the relationship. They want someone who can share a life, not surrender one. That's why independence isn't just attractive, it's essential. It signals that your happiness isn't fragile, that your self-worth isn't tethered to their attention. When they see you thriving in your own world, pursuing goals, nurturing friendships, and finding meaning beyond the relationship, they start to feel at ease. Because to them, that means you won't demand from them the kind of emotional constant they struggle to give. You're showing that love for you is a choice, not a dependency. It's important to understand that for an avoidant, closeness can sometimes feel like loss. They fear being needed in ways they can't sustain. So when you approach love from a place of wholeness, you rewrite that fear. You're telling them, I want you here, but I don't need you to complete me. That kind of emotional balance is what makes them begin to trust. It allows them to relax into connection without feeling trapped. Ironically, the moment they see you have a life that doesn't revolve around them is often the moment they feel safe enough to orbit closer. Independence also protects your own energy. It keeps you from slipping into the cycle of chasing, fixing, or overgiving to earn love. It reminds you that your purpose isn't to rescue an avoidant, it's to remain authentic to yourself while creating space for genuine connection. When you model self-sufficiency and inner strength, you set the emotional tone. You show that love can be soft without being self-sacrificing, generous without being depleting. Over time, this steady autonomy becomes deeply reassuring. The avoidant begins to realize that love with you doesn't mean losing themselves. It means being with someone who understands boundaries, balance, and self-respect. Independence doesn't push them away. It pulls them closer because it transforms love from a threat into a sanctuary. And in that space, where both partners stand whole and free, true intimacy finally has room to grow. In the end, love isn't about breaking someone's walls. It's about showing them they're safe enough to let them down. When you meet distance with calm, emotion with understanding, vulnerability with truth, inconsistency with steadiness, and closeness with independence, you create a love that feels like freedom, not fear. Because real connection doesn't demand surrender, it inspires trust. Thank you for listening, for opening your heart to understanding love through patience and strength. May you never chase validation, but always attract peace, and may every connection you build remind you that the safest love begins within you.